Yeah.
He did that on purpose.
The guy that carries the sauce came from the factory.
I heard you all said something yesterday.
Yeah. Well, it was like, because Aaron, I don't know who was talking about it. Maybe the teacher was.
I
forgot to. She was like.
Oh, is it the ad thing?
Well, I was telling Aaron, but then she was just like, that was. Is this the one? She wasn't even. She was like, oh, just,
Yep.
There's an assignment. Oh.
Hello, Jack.
Anti-Semitism.
That's what it says.
My dear friend.
Yeah.
Good morning.
I was so confused by it.
Yeah, no, I didn't really get why it was specifically anti-Semitism.
Huh?
But it's hate speech, but-
Right? I was gonna say I was on time yesterday too, but I went to attend it.
But you were kind of.
I mean, they just say when you hate one thing, you hate everything.
Yeah,
I'm like, I took that as don't hate anything.
yeah, I
Not
guess.
just don't hate Jews.
Shoot.
I guess, yeah. So I thought that was super specific.
Did you get the
Andaba
email?
con una
For your local Yes. And then I just need to do that Craigslist thing. That makes me so mad.
You saw it in the Oh no, you did it and then it deleted.
It got deleted, and she just was like, "Okay, redo it."
How did you
Boy,
guys? How did you guys do your local work? Like, what did you guys write on? How did you guys do it?
I
I
don't
wrote
remember.
it.
I don't know if you.
Yeah.
It's not like it's not.
Are we supposed to use? Are you supposed to use? Like,
You just use the resources and then you say
yeah, just like why they're the opposite.
But it's not supposed to be evidence head. Like your entire.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How are we doing today? Apparently not well. Brindley could manage to ignore me completely.
It was about educational things.
What was it about?
I was helping her with an essay. And I didn't hear you.
What?
What do you mean, what?
It's a joke because I said I didn't hear it. And then he went, what?
Oh.
Don't laugh at me.
I say it's free time, and everybody works on your stuff.
Well, when you become a teacher and have your own classroom, you can make those decisions. So until then, zip it, Skippy.
Yeah. I had an entire thing.
All right.
And it makes me so mad.
Just like basically just do the one that make specific. Which one maybe so you like this one, and then on the next one, do one that has like has next order, and just do that over.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. So today is the last day before our final project tomorrow morning. So before we get too far into things and before I just give you a few reminders and then maybe give you some work time, question is, do you have any questions for me before tomorrow's final project or final lab?
Yeah.
Shoot.
Do you teach cumulative chemistry?
Do I teach what?
Cumulative chemistry.
There is no such class
I mean,
as
no.
cumulative chemistry.
No, I have.
You mean conceptual?
Yeah, conceptual. Sorry.
Do I teach conceptual chemistry? Yes.
They're having spit hour this time.
Oh, that's math.
Why are you going from chem to conceptual?
Because I asked for it.
Oh, okay. Okay. Other questions about the lab or things that pertain to this trimester, maybe?
Can we get it going?
What?
Can we get it going?
No, not yet.
Well, do you? I don't know what you're talking
Najma, what's your question?
Can we work on more balanced equations?
What do you mean, can we work on more balanced equations?
Looks stupid.
Like, you show us how to set
Like
it up.
basically explain the whole thing again.
Yeah.
No, you did just
What the
ask me
heck?
what the potential
Sorry, I played more than I realized.
or
I've got this.
I don't know who gave me a code.
Grab something else.
But I'm
and I
not
didn't even grab-
What?
Somebody gave me a code.
All right.
Oh.
Oh, a cold.
So this would be the part that, since you've asked me to do this, that you would want to pay attention to. Okay?
I'm here.
So now, you are going to end up taking two things that are from your lab that make a precipitate. Now, the two things that you will take from your lab will be one thing from the top here and one from the side here. And which one will you choose? It has to be one where you make a precipitate in one of these boxes. So for example, if sodium chloride were to precipitate with sodium nitrate, you would write the formula for sodium chloride plus the formula for sodium nitrate. Your products would be the two things that you write in this box, the two things that are created. And one of them has to be a precipitate. So then you're going to write that down. Okay? So, for example, let's do this. Let's do lead nitrate plus sodium iodide. So these would be the two things that are either across the top or down the side. These are the two things that you begin with, okay? You are going to create two new compounds by having the lead and the sodium switch spots. So you're going to end up with NaNO3, and you are going to end up with PbI2. That is what you are going to create. Now, if you were to check these, this one would be aqueous, and this one would be a solid. Now, the one thing that I've been telling people, and I will remind you, is you have to write a correct formula here. If you do not write a correct formula over by these, I'm not grading this part. This part I'm not even looking at, other than to see if it's done so that you can start the lab. But here you need to write a correct formula. So lead is a +2, nitrate is a -1. That is how I get that formula. Okay? So you're going to need to check it. Now, also, should point this out, ladies and gentlemen, because it is what matters in this lab. If I were you today, if you have time, if all your predictions are done and you're good there, I would write down next to these their correct formulas. What it is, double checking charges. So what's the charge on sodium? What's the charge on chlorine? What would be the way we would write the compound? Because that is what you're putting down here. Formulas, not names. Okay? So I would hate to see you come down here and write the formula for potassium chromate as KCrO4. Because you will lose a half a point for that. That is not the correct formula. So at some point today, I would go through, and next to these, I would write their correct formulas so that when you realize that I is barium nitrate, you are writing that formula correctly in that spot. Because again, you lose a half a point if you do not write the formula correctly. You lose a half a point if it's not in the right spot. You lose a full point if it's not in the right spot and you wrote it incorrectly. And by the way, if you put one in the wrong spot, what does that mean? You have at least one other one in the wrong spot. Okay? So if you get one wrong by placing it in the wrong spot, you're guaranteed of getting one wrong. If you do the formulas bad on both of them, now you've got 2 points off. You're 1 point away from losing 5% on your test or on your project. Okay? So again, now that I have everything written correctly here, this formula is correct. Sodium Na plus 1, I minus 1. This formula is correct. Na plus 1, NO3 minus 1. That formula is correct. Pb plus 2, I minus 1. That formula is correct. The last thing you have to do is balance it. Okay? Now again, I am not grading you on balancing other than how your formula looks. So if you can balance it without setting up the scoreboard, you do not have to do so. If you need to set up the scoreboard, you can do it on a separate sheet of paper. You can do it on this sheet if there's room. I don't care. But again, you would list all the elements that are involved. Now, I'm going to do a shortcut here. I am going to keep the NO3 together because it appears the same on both sides of the equation. It's an NO3 group here and an NO3 group there. If that bothers you, break it up into nitrogen and oxygen. I don't care. 1 lead, 1 sodium, 1 iodide, 2 NO3 groups because it's in parentheses with the 2 outside of it. Over here, 1 Na, 1 NO3 group, 1 Pb, 2 Is. So now I'm going to start by balancing. I'm going to balance off the I. I'm going to put a 2 in front here. That makes 2 of these and 2 of these. I'm going to put a 2 in front here. That makes 2 of these. That makes 2 of these. This is what you need to write down to get credit for those 4 balanced equations. Now, there are precipitates in every single set. From set 1 all the way to set 6. You can use 1 from any of the 4 sets that you wish. You can do it from set 1, 2, 3, and 4. And there are multiples in there, but you can only take 1 equation from each set. You could do it from 2, 3, 4, and 5. 1 equation from each set. I don't care which 4 you choose. So when you are looking at this, ladies and gentlemen, at these tables here, if you want to do one for set 5, find where there's a precipitate in this area, in these boxes that you're filling out. Take the 2 things that are combined to make that precipitate. Those are your reactants. The 2 things in the box are your products. You should have circled the one or identified the one that is a precipitate somehow. So now you know which one gets an S by it. The other one is aqueous. Everything else, 3 of the 4 in a double replacement reaction are aqueous. So you write those down, okay? And then you balance it. But again, if you make a mistake with a formula here, I don't care. Other than you need to make sure you know which ones are precipitating. So if in here you write lead chloride is PbCl, that's not correct. Lead is a +2. Chlorine is a -1. I don't care about it in here. I'm not going to grade that. But if that's the one you choose to write your balanced equation, you better make sure you check the charges on Pb, the charges on Cl, so you write a correct formula there. Otherwise, they will not balance. Okay? Questions? Okay. Now, here's the other thing, ladies and gentlemen. When you're done here, and what I mean by that is you've got all of your ones in here. So here there would be no reaction. 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 Okay? Why? Because you've either got the same anion or cation in all of those boxes. Okay? You've either got the same anion or cation. If you put nitrate with nitrate, nothing happens. If you put sodium with sodium, nothing happens. If you put copper with copper, nothing happens. So all of these are no reactions. So now you go through and you find precipitate here and another product. Okay? Now you're going to take and you're going to, excuse me. Now what I would do is I would do a couple things. Again, depending on how much time you have. Okay? Number one, in this set, I would put a note by these. Copper. These are going to be blue. Those are going to be blue. Now when you get back there and you see that bottle V and bottle W are blue, you can then put by this V and W, because you know one of these two must be in each of these bottles. Now I'm making this up. Please do not copy down the letters here. Okay? I'm just using that as an example. The other thing that I would do is I would start by doing this. I would look at copper chloride. I would go across and go down and say, okay, how many things does copper chloride precipitate with? And I would write the number of precipitates here. Then I would do the same thing for copper nitrate. But when you do this, ladies and gentlemen, when you do this, you have to be careful, and you start here, you go across until you hit the X, and then you go down. So in those 4 or 5 boxes, because obviously the one with the X we're not going to count, how many precipitates are there? Write that down. For this one, you go across until you hit the X, and then you go down. Write how many precipitates there are. In other words, the better off you set yourself up here, the quicker you're going to be back there. Okay? And maybe you're going to find that one of these blue ones reacts with something else. Because I know these are both blue, once I know which one of these reacts with something else, I've not only identified which one of these is the copper chloride or the copper nitrate, but I've also identified which one is the clear ones it's with, because it reacted with them. So now, again, if this reacts with 2 things and they're both clear, well, okay, the one that it didn't react with, then I know, right? There's 3 clear bottles there. If it reacts with 2 of them, the one that it didn't react with, I know what that is. And that's what I mean by putting together this puzzle. What things it does and doesn't react with. Because I can semi-identify these because they're blue, I can use that to my advantage. Okay? But also, you've got to have all of this done. You've got to know what is supposed to react with what. Okay? Now, again, it is impossible for me to give you these 2 if there's no other way to identify them. If these 2 didn't react with anything, you would have no way of knowing which one of these is which. So one of these has to react with something. Okay? One of them has to react with something. When you find that, that can help you identify things. Okay? And please remember, what do we know about nitrate? What does it precipitate with? Nothing. But be careful, because even though this is lead nitrate, you may think, well, nothing's going to react with it. Well, the lead could still react with something. Okay? So the lead could still react with something, and this could still make a precipitate here. So that's where you've got to be careful. So, again, I'm not telling you you have to do any of this, other than you have to finish this table here and tell me and identify the precipitates. If you are done with this today, call me over. I will look at it. I'll check it off at the top of your page. And tomorrow when you come in, you can go right to work when we start. I'm not going to go over things tomorrow, other than remind you, put only 1 drop on the plate. Make sure you don't dip the tip of the bottle into another solution. Make sure the cap goes back on the right bottle so we don't contaminate them. And in the back, ladies and gentlemen, there are literally 3 setups for every station in the back. So normally there's about 18 of us in here. There are 18 stations set up in the back. You could work alone if you wanted to. Now, if you want to work with a partner, you are welcome to. The one thing you are not allowed to do is your group confer with another group. You have to figure that out on your own. So you can't go up to another group and go, wait, which one was in bottle this? If you're doing that, I'm going to give you a 0 on it. Okay? So, again, please don't do that. Okay? Questions? Are you good? Anyone have any other questions? Okay, here's the one last thing that I will tell you before I let you go to work on your own, since Cynthia's so anxious to do so. If you want to come up to me today and find out what you need to get on this to get a certain grade, you could come up. I'll put a 0 in for your assignment, show you what the lowest grade you could have, even if you got a 0 on tomorrow's lab activity. And then I could put in a grade 50%, 60%, 70%. And we could see what you would need to get whatever grade you want in the course. Now, please, 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 don't come up to me with a C- and go, Ms. Brown, what do I need to do to get an A? Because then I have to give you my standard answer, which is invent a time machine, go back in time, do better on your tests in this first trimester or this trimester of the class, and do better in the class. But by the way, if you can invent a working time machine and let me use it for 48 hours, I'll give you an A for the class.
What are you gonna use it for?
You don't need to worry about that.
Good.
So
Hey,
anyway,
you go back to not marry your wife.
They go back to the prehistoric time, meet Albert Einstein.
What do you
Bro,
have against their happy marriage?
How do you know they're happy?
so I'm still in it?
That doesn't make
That doesn't make sense. That's like
Okay. So anyway, point being, you're not going to get to a B or an A if you've got a C- going.
I highly doubt anybody.
But if you've got a D going and you want to know what you need on this to get a passing grade, I can tell you that. So just let me know. You can come up to my desk. I'll pull up your grade. We'll show you what it's at, and we'll go through those things. Does anyone have any questions?
What grade do I need to get an A?
Me too.
You need a time machine grade.
How many points do you need to have on a test?
You know what?
Well, that's what the thing. I cannot tell you individual, or I cannot tell you as a group what it is, because number one, I have to be looking at your grade. Number two, there's a difference between having a B+ and a B-. If you've got a B-, you're probably not getting to an A with this, even if you get 100% on the final. But the only way I can tell you that is if you come up to my desk, we pull up your grade, we look at it, and I plug in some numbers for you, which I will gladly do for everybody except Cynthia. I will still do it for her, I just won't be happy about it. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't have any more questions of me, if you want to come up and ask me about your grade, that's fine. We'll do that one at a time. But if you don't have any more questions about the lab, go to work, get ready to do so. Okay, hold on, one at a time.
No, we're
Show
packing
up.
two. We come together. Either one of them or none of them.
Okay, then none, go away.
I'm still here.
I see that. Apparently